Hey everyone, it's B, and you're listening to another episode of the In Your Feelings podcast. For those of you who are new here, In Your Feelings is a podcast that dives into the very real and very messy aspects of life that we are all navigating. I create these episodes just to have honest conversations about things like relationships and moving on and worthiness, things that can feel really disheartening and confusing in the hopes that these 30 minutes or so make you feel less alone in what you're feeling and remind you that you aren't the only person who is dealing with certain things in life. As always, this podcast is made possible and brought to you by my publisher, Thought Catalog, and shopcatalog.com, which are always linked in the description of these episodes. And so with that being said, today's topic is on boundaries and why they're so important, especially for those who are empathetic or for those who love deeply. This concept of being the kind of person who cares in this world is so encouraged in all of my writing. You all know that I will never stop celebrating human beings who crash their hearts into this world and show up for others. I think it's beautiful to be that kind of person. But I also know that feeling things so deeply and caring as if it were an extension of yourself is both a beautiful and burdensome thing at times. And what I mean by that is, when you have so much love to give others, when you just want to be the person who shows up, when you just want to be the person who fixes and helps and makes sure that the people in your life feel the sunniest kind of happiness, when you take on their emotions as your own, when you just want to make sure that everything is okay, that everyone feels seen, that everyone feels loved, you do attract human beings who are kind and compassionate and who give you the same love back, but you also tend to attract human beings who sometimes see your heart as something they can take advantage of. And this is why so many empaths or people who are deeply compassionate fall into these relationships or friendships or family dynamics that end up draining them or end up being extremely one-sided or toxic. So the empathy, the love, the depth, it can be something so light-filled and soft, but it can also, in a lot of cases, leave you feeling depleted or leave you feeling empty because you're not always poured into in the same ways. And that is why it's so important to learn how to protect your energy. It's proven that a lot of highly sensitive people lack healthy boundaries. They care so deeply. They want to nurture those around them, and they want to give and give and give. I know what it is like. I know what it is like to just pour out for the people you love. I know what it is like to have a heart that just can't say no, that sometimes can't walk away from situations that hurt it or that drain it because I ultimately don't want to give up on the people in my life. I don't want to turn my back on them or abandon them or make them think that I don't care for them. I want them to feel safe and loved in this world. I know what it is like to feel that way, and I know how overwhelming it can be. I know how disorienting it can be to care so much, but to also know you need to take care of yourself while also not really being able to advocate for that or convince yourself that asking for that space or that grounding is okay. And you don't have to apologize for that. I say it every single episode. It is beautiful to be the kind of person who cares, and Often, I think that a lot of us have grown up around this belief that love is sacrifice, that you don't ever give up on someone, that you don't ever walk away, that you give and give and give, and you fight and fight and fight for those in your life. You always put them first. But that doesn't mean you sacrifice at your own expense. That doesn't mean that you can't have boundaries and be empathetic and be compassionate and be of value to those in your life. And I think that takes a long time to learn. I get that. I think that often a lot of compassionate people don't even really realize that they need to set stronger boundaries with those they care about or with the people in their lives. Because when you give so much of yourself, you often continue to give and you don't pay attention to how your relationships or how the people in your life are affecting you and your heart and your happiness. You only realize that something might be off or something might not be for you when you're depleted and burnt out and just exhausted, until you feel alone, until you're in a toxic friendship or relationship and you feel disheartened and overwhelmed. As an act of self-love, it's important to take a step back and to find self-awareness, to really ask yourself what is building you up in life and what is tearing you down. What hurts? What drains your energy? Really deeply ask yourself, do you ever feel like people take advantage of you or use your emotions for their own gain? Do you ever feel like you're constantly having to save people close to you and fix their problems all the time? Do you find yourself deeply invested or deeply attached to very intense, toxic relationships? In your relationships, does it feel like things are always either light-filled and beautiful or heavy and haunted with no in-between? Do you, in your heart, hate drama or anything along those lines, but you constantly are the person who gets put in the middle of it as a fixer or as a voice of reason? Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed when you have to go and see people in your life because you know it will leave you drained? Do you feel like you often don't have enough time for yourself because you've given it away to others? Do you feel like you've let yourself down or let yourself go because you've given so much of your energy and your time and your love to others that now you don't have any energy or time or love to pour back into yourself? If any of these questions hit your heart or made your stomach flip, it's time to stand up for yourself and to create boundaries that help you to protect your energy. At the end of the day, you are your own home. You have to take care of yourself. You have to take responsibility for not only the energy you're putting out into the world, but also the energy you're allowing around you. We teach people how to love us. We teach people what we can handle and what we cannot. We teach people how to respect us. And you deserve love and respect. You deserve the same empathy you give to everyone around you. Love should not be something that leaves you feeling exhausted and drained. Sit with that. Nor should friendship or family. There is only so much you can give before you really need to start defending your heart. And so once you really committed to that, how do you even start to set boundaries? I know that was something I really struggled with, the starting part. And what I learned over time was that you do it by being intentional and by really coming home to yourself and being honest with yourself. People who love deeply often need to most learn how to create balance and boundaries around the amount of time they give to those they care about. And so if this is you, if you feel a little knot in your chest and you're like, yeah, this is something that I really need to do, I want you to ask yourself, really take the time to think about what your heart needs, what you need for once. How much space and solitude do you need to feel nourished and energized? What genuinely refreshes and recharges you? What tends to drain you? What asks for you to lose yourself in order for you to keep it in your life? What people tend to drain you? What people tend to make your heart feel like it isn't being held? Like your love is not being valued or reciprocated, like you're giving and giving and giving to the point of exhaustion. When do you feel your best? The most you, the most free? When do you feel your worst? The heaviest, the loneliest, even when you're surrounded by certain people? When do you feel anxious? Like you're trapped? Like you know you need to walk away or give less, but you just can't? That's where you begin. The things that came up for you while you were asking yourself those questions, you know them deep in your heart. You know where you need to be kinder to yourself. You know where you deserve to pull your energy from, where you deserve to let it flow. You know. It's a matter of allowing yourself to create boundaries around those things. And it can start small. It doesn't have to be this line in the sand. It doesn't have to be this concrete wall that you put up around yourself just to protect yourself. It doesn't have to look like that. It can start by allowing yourself to say no to helping someone when you genuinely know that you don't have the energy to do so. A healthy boundary looks like taking time for yourself, really giving yourself space to do even 15 minutes of something that makes your soul come alive, that grounds you. A healthy boundary looks like pausing before you say yes to something and really checking in with yourself. Do you actually want to do that thing? Do you actually want to go to that event? Do you actually want to be surrounded by those human beings, or are you just saying yes to please people? Are you just saying yes so you don't disappoint the people you care about? A healthy boundary looks like reinforcing your worth and your needs just as much as you do so for others. It looks like really affirming that you are allowed to ask for space and for help and for time away from someone, and that doesn't take away from the value of your love, and that doesn't mean that you are letting someone down. A healthy boundary looks like checking in with your feelings and your thoughts and asking yourself, is this mine? See, when you're compassionate or empathetic, you feel things very deeply, and you often can take people's emotions home with you. You can take their problems on as your own. You can make it your responsibility to fix what's going on in their life. You bring it into your mind and into your heart. It's like having an emotional hangover in a way. You walk away with conversations and feelings and fears and negativity, and it's all stuck to you, and it can drain you and exhaust you and really impact your mental health. Learning to assess those feelings and those things you're holding on to, and reminding yourself that often they are not yours to hold, is important. You can let them go. You are not responsible for fixing the people in your life. You're only responsible for loving them. And you can love them deeply and well, and also take care of yourself, and also take care of your heart. A healthy boundary looks like really being honest with yourself about what hurts, and giving yourself permission to walk away from those things, to stop fighting for those who aren't fighting for you, to stop pouring so much of your love into those who cannot value it. There's only so much you can give. There's only so much you can fight for until it breaks you. A healthy boundary within this is truly standing up for your heart and really making the decision to uphold that each and every single day. It's checking in with yourself whenever you're made to feel like you are hard to love. It's checking in with yourself whenever your heart aches, or it's mistreated, or you feel like you are not being valued or respected. It's about saying, I deserve more than this. And it's about sticking to that. And don't get me wrong, it's so difficult at first. It will be so tough. But you have to defend your heart and the way you desire to be loved. Again, you teach people how to love you. You do that by being dedicated to what you deserve, to what you truly want. You don't settle for things that don't nurture or nourish you or fill you with love. You commit to your value. You commit to your worth. But listen, I get it. Boundaries are not easy things to set. My goodness, do I understand that. They come with a lot of guilt for people like you and I. I know what it is like to want to reinforce a boundary, but to be overwhelmed with the guilt of standing up for myself. I know what that feels like. I know how heavily it can weigh on your heart. When we set boundaries, there are so many voices inside of us that tell us we're being selfish, or that we aren't being a good person or partner when we don't put someone before ourselves. We tell ourselves that putting someone's needs before our own is the compassionate thing to do, that it's the right thing to do. We convince ourselves that by not giving them what they need, or giving them our love, or giving them every single aspect of ourselves and all of our energy, we are unkind or uncaring. We tell ourselves that we're responsible for their happiness, that we can't just turn our backs on them. We tell ourselves that we're strong enough to give even if we aren't receiving, that we were made to be the people in this world who pour, even if no one is pouring back into us. We tell ourselves that we can handle it. But this is something I want you to really understand and sit with. The guilt you feel when setting a boundary is not because the boundary itself is wrong. It's because all of the deeper limiting beliefs you have that tell you it's wrong, that tell you it's selfish, that tell you it's uncaring, that tell you it's dismissive, that tell you it's cruel or unloving. But the boundary isn't any of those things. It's not wrong to want to take care of yourself. It's not wrong to walk away from a love that only ever leaves you feeling unworthy or trapped. It's not wrong to advocate for your heart. It is not wrong to stand up for yourself. It's not wrong. Try your best to remind yourself of that whenever the guilt bubbles up in your chest. It will be often and consistent at first, but you have to talk it down and tell yourself a boundary is not a lack of compassion. Boundaries are not a lack of caring. A boundary is not a lack of empathy. Boundaries are an act of self-love, and that better helps for you to love those around you. The more you show up for yourself, the better you can show up for others. It's why we're always told to put our oxygen masks on before those we're seated beside when we're flying on a plane. We can't pour from an empty cup. Boundaries help for you to ensure that your cup is always full. And imagine how much more love you can give from that kind of place. How much lighter it would feel. And lastly, I just want to remind you to be aware of how people react to your boundaries. It's important to see these reactions as valuable signs. Pay attention to how people react to your boundaries. Remember that. Do they push against them? Do they have a hard time taking no for an answer? Do they make you feel guilty or bad about yourself in some way? Do they take you seriously or think your boundaries are unreasonable or that they don't apply to them? All of this is helpful information about the quality of that specific relationship. And it hurts when we come to terms with the fact that the people we love the most and care for might not have the same consideration for us. But it can also be a guiding light. It can be a moment of clarity that encourages us to invest more in relationships where our boundaries and needs are respected. And I mean, isn't that what you want? Isn't that what you deserve? At the end of the day, you deserve the love you give to everyone around you. Your heart deserves more than exhaustion. And you know that. I know you know that. It's time to stand up for that, to really commit to that. The most important boundaries of all are the ones that you set for yourself. Whatever behavior you permit for yourself and the rules that you live by will signal to others what you'll accept from them too. And so I've said it before and I'll say it again until I am blue in the face. You can't help others until you help yourself first. So the ultimate act of self-love is setting a high standard for what you will accept in your life. Please don't ever forget that you are worthy of that standard. Never stop believing that you deserve it. All right. Thank you all for listening. I hope these words helped in even the smallest way. I hope they encourage you to stand up for those hearts of yours because they are so beautiful. If you do need a little more encouragement, or if you'd like to read more of my work that covers the same kinds of topics, I do have 2 books out that you can get on shopcatalog.com if you would like. But other than that, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. And until next week, I hope you know just how loved you are.